All right, and we're live. Let's just make sure this is going out okay onto the old YouTubes. Come on. Come on. Come on. All right, I think it's going out. Okay. All right. So, you may have noticed if you follow me on Twitter. If you don't, if you're on the Twitter, you should. You may have noticed that I didn't tweet this out because I am currently in the middle of a 12-hour ban. Well, not the middle. I only got a few hours left. But yeah, I got a 12-hour ban on the Twitter, and me having to police a little dog here. But yeah, so the other day on Twitter, a account Red Rose Socialist, which is a socialist group here in Lancaster County, PA, decided to follow me, and I took a screen cap of them following me and just put, not sure why you're following me because I believe all socialists need to hang. And I was forced to delete that tweet and had a 12-hour ban. Now, I mean, I'm sure they, reported it because they're whiny little bitches. What I should have done, and I knew better than this, you don't talk to them like they're people. I should have just blocked them. But silly me, I just always have it in my head that a human being can be reasoned with, and that's foolish on my part. But it's just this little bit of idealism in me that won't die. Naivety is perhaps even a better word. And along that line, there's a couple of things I want to talk about tonight. Last night's Rick and Morty was kind of interesting. If you enjoyed Rick and Morty, I thought it was a solid end of the season. And once again, it kind of calls Rick out on his bullshit. And I really like the episodes that do that. The end of Pickle Rick was like that. I enjoy that. Because I was always of the mindset that you're not supposed to really envy Rick or want to be like Rick. Now, I don't know what the intention of the asswipe that created the show is. Dan Harmon, the more and more I hear about him, the more he seems like a shithead. But a lot of times good art, the truth shines through even if the creator didn't intend it. So I do want to talk about that. I got a little gadget today. The Sega Genesis Ultimate Portable Game Player, which is just this little. I got it at Target, and the reason I picked it up is I just happened to be cleaning out a drawer and realized I had a couple of gift cards, from my old job. They would both for my birthday and for Christmas, they would give me Target gift cards, which was very, very generous of them. So I had some free Target money, so I picked this up. There's a lot of classic Genesis games on here, and then there's a lot of like bullshit filler. Like you got your Altered Beast, you got your Alex Kidd, you got your Sonic 1, 2, and Sonic and Knuckles, not Sonic 3. Kind of odd. You got Columns, and you got Columns 3, but not Columns 2. That's weird. Comic Zone, classic. Decap Attack, that's kind of out of nowhere. Splatterhouse 2, that shit, that, even a reproduction card of Splatterhouse 2 would run you like $30. It's a cool little device. There, like I said, there's a bunch of filler in here, but there are ways that you can actually add games onto this thing, which I'll have to figure out. I want to see if I can get some games added on here. Specifically, I want to add, and I don't know if I'll even be able to do it. Who knows? How formatting can be and shit like that. But I have Super Smash Land downloaded, which is a free fan-made game. It's really cool. It's basically Super Smash Brothers if it was made on the original Game Boy. It's even done in like a monochrome green coloring. And it's a cool little game. You can play as like Link, Mario, Kirby, Mega Man's in there. A couple other guys off the top of my head I don't remember. But that'd be cool to download onto this thing. The screen's really nice. You know, it's got the D-pad and the 6 buttons that a Genesis controller would have. A lot of them had 3, but then, you know, later ones had 6. It feels very flimsy, but a lot of these aftermarket things do. But yeah, you can add games in with the SD card. I'll have to figure out how to get them on there. Might have Undertow help me with that. He's a big old nerd. He'll know how to do it. Somebody says my favorite Genesis game was Rocket Knight Adventures. That is a fantastic game. If I can get a good, you know, downloaded copy of that, I might put it on there. Like, I wonder if it would have to see. I don't think it has to be Genesis games on here because, again, there's a ton of games on here that are like bullshit, like the kind of games you find on like bootleg, you know, like plug and play systems. You know, shit like, what is this here? Stuff that was obviously never on the Genesis, so it's not strictly speaking just a Genesis emulator. You know, games like Bomber, Black Sheep, Brain Switch, Break the Fire Line, Bubbles Master. Like a lot of this is just game title chess, just chess. Yeah, a lot of this is going to be just absolute ass. I wonder if I can delete games off of it. I don't know. I'll figure it out. It's a cool little device, though. It was on sale, and I had some free Target money, so scooped it up along with a few other things I needed. Let's see. What else did I want to talk about? I do want to talk about the big news, the terrorist attack in Vegas. I mean, I don't really consider this a breaking news channel, but I do have some things to say about it. Let's see. What did I want to? Okay, so here's some interesting. Now, I can still go on Twitter. I can't tweet, favorite, or retweet anything. So I have actually checked Twitter a little bit today because it's a good news source. And this is interesting. I saw retweeted, kind of chat my ass a little bit. So this guy's talking about what is this guy's name? Matthew Michael. And he's basically talking to Catholics and say, I assume some Catholic I follow it looks like Christian was retweeting it. Was running his mouth about how Catholics shouldn't pray with non-Catholics because it allows demonic activity in. Because what's he say here? You know, God is not pleased with the prayers of non-Catholics. And again, people wonder why I've gone suddenly against Catholics. Look, I've never not for a moment have I ever thought Catholicism wasn't bullshit. Wasn't just a distorted form of Christianity and an insanely corrupt institution. But, you know, I have Catholic friends. I have Catholics, you know, I find common cause with. And I don't think Catholics aren't Christian. I think some of the aversion I've seen among my fellow Matt Forney just has a great comment here. You know what also lets in demons? Anal sex, particularly with anal sex with little boys. Yeah, that's going to be my point here shortly. But I don't have the same level of aversion to Catholicism that some in evangelical circles do. You don't necessarily see it quite as much on the national stage because guys on the national stage, more often than not, are concerned, whether they'll admit it or not, more with politics than they are with theology. You know, the guys like on Breakpoint and shit, they're always, at the end of the day, they're more politically minded than they are theologically minded, whether they'll admit that or not. And that's why they will find common cause on these social issues with Catholics. And even guys like Breakpoint will find common cause with Muslims. There have been articles on Breakpoint about how Muslims are natural allies in the culture war, because Muslims hate faggots. I mean, okay, that's great. To say, oh yeah, we should let more Muslims in the country because they hate faggots. That's like me saying, well, I got some mice here in my home. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to unleash some cobras because that's going to deal with the mice, right? Well, yeah, I guess it will. But I sort of end up with a worse problem. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, the mice are destructive and can spread disease, not unlike the fags. But the cobras are going to try to kill me, not unlike the Muslims. I think y'all are getting the analogy there. Yeah, this is in the remedial class. I don't think you need help with that. So yeah, what really strikes me about, and again, I don't think, where was I going? Okay, yeah, like I said, on the national stage, you don't necessarily see that same aversion. But when you get into the grassroots of evangelical culture, and by evangelical, I just really mean conservative Protestant. There are different flavors of it. I realize Catholics think Protestantism is just one fucking monotone thing, except when they're pimping their unity. Then they're like, oh, there's like a billion factions. Suddenly, then they are able to differentiate. But at the grassroots level, evangelicals are incredibly adverse to Catholicism. At levels I often thought were silly. I'm not going to go into rehashing. I've mentioned it on here before, but there were interactions with past churches where it was an incredibly silly aversion. That said, though, as time goes on, I'm beginning to understand where they were coming from. Still massive overreaction, don't get me wrong. Just beginning to understand it a bit more. So I don't have that same level of aversion that many evangelicals would. For instance, a lot of them would even, question whether sincere Catholics are saved. I don't really question that. They try to add a ton of extra shit on top of it, which is wrong. The basic faith in Christ you need to survive for salvation. But more or less, I think most of them have it. Don't get me wrong. I mean, if the evangelicals are right and the rapture happens, I'm sure there's going to be enough of the higher up leaders of the Catholic Church to keep that organization running without skipping a beat. But yeah, what really chaps my ass though is this arrogance from the Catholics. I'm like, don't pray with a non-Catholic because it displeases God and there's a litany in demons and this insane level of no other Christian is a Christian kind of shit. And it staggers I mean, I can't imagine it. I don't even get where you're coming from there. The idea that, yeah, I have accepted the work of Christ on the cross for salvation, and I'm going to get to the pearly gates and be told that wasn't good enough. I was supposed to also submit to this organization. An organization, which that in and of itself is not Christian. I'm just going to say it right there. That kind of position is not Christian. And then to be, and not only do you have to submit to this organization, and that's all it is, by the way. It's an organization. That's all it is. Not only do you have to submit to this one particular organization, but it has to be this one particular organization that is run by Marxist pedophiles. And y'all fucking Catholics like to mock me, like, oh, that's all you got? Marx, that's all you got, pedo priest or pedo priest, that's all you got? First of all, no, it's not. I have several theological issues. But second of all, the fuck else do I need? I don't understand how you can make so much light of that. Like, that's not a big fucking deal. Like the absolute tatters morally that your church is in is not a big fucking deal. Like, oh, well, it's funny. We, I believe in the doctrine of eternal security that, once saved, always saved, that nothing can take away my salvation. Catholics, you kind of have that too. You just apply it to an organization rather than individuals. You believe the Catholic Church is the one true church, and nothing it ever does or fails to do can change that. Um, you know, and I don't see that as scriptural. I mean, specifically in Revelations, Christ talks about taking the lampstand away from churches. I don't know why Catholics imagine that the Vatican is immune to that, particularly given the Vatican's current state. So yeah, this sheer level of arrogance, it staggers me. Given the absolute fucking tatters your church is in. And you could point to like this or that dead Protestant branch, or again, as if Protestantism is just this one fucking thing. But I'm not in any of those. Nor should anybody else be. Oh, you just always just point to the pedo priest. Yeah, I guess I'm just focusing on that minor issue, huh? Well, public school teachers molest children too. Yeah, okay. The education, the United States government and its educational system, its government schools are vile fucking organizations. What's your point? Is that your fucking measure? Is that your metric? So he says Matt Forney says any Protestant who is upset over Catholicism in U.S. should have done something back when the Irish were being brought in circa 1850s. Well, I mean, I am growing more and more certain that the Know Nothing Party did nothing wrong. But yeah, that level of arrogance, and somebody else here is saying like, which Catholic is upsetting Bechtloff between podcasts? Isn't it always Davis? I watched them both. And then somebody else says Davis doesn't sugarcoat his church's problems. That's why most Protestants don't have a problem with him. Yeah, I don't really have a problem with Davis. I mean, I wish he'd give up the whore of Babylon, but other than that, I don't have a problem with him because he recognizes the faults of it. But to walk around and be like, I have no fellowship with, non-Catholic Christians aren't true believers because they don't admit to an organization run by Marxist pedophiles. And, it was a brilliant comment. It was in the chat. I think I first saw it. Some user, and I can't remember his screen name, but he had said, when Christ did his work on the cross, the veil in the temple. Now, again, I don't have shit in front of me, so forgive me if I got terms wrong here. But the veil in the temple was meant to separate the holiest of holies from the other sections, and it was, it was that there was still, it symbolizes this still division between man and God. That you needed the sacrifice to approach God and all this other stuff. Well, when in scriptures it says when Christ did his work on the cross, the veil was torn right down the center. Because you now have sufficient sacrifice that you can now approach God. When you're covered in the blood of Christ, that's the only sacrifice you need. You can now approach God freely as if he was just your father. So, and I don't understand the need to add shit on top of that. Like, oh no, you don't pray to God, you pray to the saints so that they can go run messages to God or to fucking Mary and shit like that. And then, you got to do all these works on top of it because somehow the blood of Christ isn't sufficient and all this other shit. As that one commenter said, Christ tore the veil, and ever since then, the Catholic Church seems bound and determined to sew the damn thing back up. Apparently it was Cornelius Rex, because he says, "I'm proud to have left such a profound comment." Actually, very honored. It's actually one of the most brilliant things somebody has said to me on theology in a while. It's basically up there with Undertow's comment on, like pearl clutchers in the church and how they value manners over morality. It was absolute brilliance. I tip my hat to it. There's one comment in here: triggered Baptist. Again, you're making light of this shit. Well, yeah, I'm triggered. I guess raping children just triggers me. Aren't I just oversensitive? I guess somebody imagining, that my salvation also has to come from kissing the ring of a communist in Rome. It just sort of triggers me. Aren't I just so sensitive? Let's see here in the chat. Somebody says, I grew up with the Sega Master System, not a Super Nintendo. Master System. Do you mean Mega Drive? Because you were comparing it to a Super Nintendo. Master System is more like NES, 8-bit. So I missed out on the original Mario games. Was playing them, but was torn between NES originals and the Super Mario Brothers All-Star NES ones. I thought of Bechtloff as I made that decision. Yeah, you know what? I grew up I had the NES as a kid. I didn't even know the Master System existed until like years later, looking into old retro games. I then had the Sega Genesis. I also had a Game Boy and a Game Gear. So I kind of played Master System Sonic 1 and 2 because they were, on the Game Gear as well. But I had Mario 1, 2, and 3, Super Mario Brothers 1, 2, and 3 on the NES. Fantastic games. It was probably like 06 when I got a Super Nintendo. One of the first things I got was the Super All-Stars. And I will say that Super Mario Brothers All-Stars on the Super Nintendo, it is the definitive way to play Mario 1, 2, and 3. Hands down. And you also get the Japanese Mario 2 in the form of Mario the Lost Levels. There's 16-bit versions of all those games. The graphics completely redone from the ground up for 16-bit. But the gameplay on all of them is identical. These days it would basically be akin to an HD port onto a next-gen system, which weren't that common back then. But yeah, they're the definitive way to own it. In fact, one of the reasons I drug my feet on getting an NES for so long here in my adult years was, one of the big draws of the NES is Super Mario Bros. 1, 2, and 3. And I was like, well, I already have All-Stars, Let's see. Have you played RoboCop on the NES? I did. I have that. I got it a couple months ago, I think. It's pretty good. It's nothing fantastic, but it's a decent time waster, and it's still really cheap. I started playing the SNES Mario All-Stars ones. Either way, they're very hard to me. Well, again, the NES ones would be the same thing. Gameplay-wise, they're the exact same thing. I think Mario 1's a bit of a ball buster, but 2 and 3, 2 is maybe a little bit more difficult than 3, but they're such different gameplay experiences. It's almost apples and oranges. But yeah, let's see. Somebody says, go to Nintendo's site. They have PDFs of all the manuals for the games on the classic editions. More vinyl decal fodder for me. That's Tom G from Butt Naked says that. Let's see. Let's see. I think it's I think I just suck being a Sega kid. Well, there's Mario 3 is weird because it's got a really odd kind of, it doesn't have a really refined difficulty curve like a lot of, especially later Mario games have. It's kind of all over the place. Like, I think the ice world is basically as hard as World 8, for example. Um, I found parts of World 7 to be more difficult than World 8 even, and then um, yeah, it's just kind of a little up and down. Um, Matt Forney says, I have more of a problem with the Calvinist. Okay, hang on. I have more problem with the Calvinist concept of the elect than the Lutheran notion of salvation by faith because it's blatantly unbiblical and breeds really awful people. Well, my position on this has always been I believe the Bible is very clear that it teaches free will and God's sovereignty, the predestination. Now, this was actually a major intellectual stumbling block for me coming to Christianity because, again, the Bible very clearly teaches both, and they appear to be an absolute contradiction. But at a certain point, I was just willing to accept that I don't know how you square the circle here. At a certain point, I was willing to accept that, I'm dealing with a being outside of time. Maybe I'm not going to know exactly how this works, and maybe that's okay. And I think the Calvinists, look, and it's, I don't want to say heresy, that's a bit of a strong word, but error, definitely. A lot of people, if they think they understand how free will versus predestination works, they're wrong. What they've done is they've lessened one or both, possibly. Somebody like Vox Day, for example, very much lessens God's sovereignty, to explain that away. Calvinists very much lessen free will. And I believe both are just blatant errors, but neither is biblical. You have to have that paradox that you have to accept that that's just something beyond your comprehension. Again, it was a major stumbling block to me until it just dawned on me that, I don't know, and I can't know, kind of thing. Let's see. Somebody says a TurboGrafx plug and play would be spectacular. I would really like to play Bonk's Adventure like in 16-bit. I have it on the NES, and no, I don't have an original copy. That's stupid expensive on the NES. But I have a reproduction of it, and it's a fun 8-bit game. But the 16-bit version of it's better, obviously. Somebody says, Bechtloff, thoughts on the latest Matoker Channel Awesome video? Yeah, I caught that last night, and I was very, very excited about it. He didn't go into a lot of the rumors, but he did a good job of covering Lindsay and Todd. And now she's actually responded a little bit of it on Facebook, or on Twitter. I saw her today. People are tweeting like coat hangers at her and shit. And she's like, "Oh, like it's a big deal that it's no secret I had an abortion and whatever." I mean, look, I'm not as pro-life as some people I imagine in my audience. I've kind of always said I would draw the line. I draw the line when you can show me there's brain activity. If you can show me that it's a thinking, feeling being, okay, fine. Before that, I'm agnostic at best on it. I can't say what I would do in that situation. Obviously, I mean, I'm a man. I'm not going to get pregnant. But even if, like I said, I don't know. Something like, say, the morning after pill, I don't have any problem with. Even if it flushes out a recently fertilized egg, I don't care. What is it, like 3 fucking cells at that point? I don't care. Yeah, it doesn't bother me. That said, though, there's something about her attitude about it. Uh, there's something about the way she's basically like. It's one thing to argue on abortion whether or not you think this is an actual person and at what stage you believe it becomes a person. It's another thing to take that hyper feminist position of Lindsay that I don't care if it's a person. Fuck it. Um, let's see. What else? Oh yeah, the going to the chat here. Christian says, why not heartbeat, Bechtloff? As like where I would draw the line. Well, that's pretty simple. Like your brain, that's where kind of everything of you is. You know, um, like I can take your heart out of your chest and replace it with another heart, and if it takes, right, if you survive the transplant, you're still you. You know, um, the heart's just a chunk of muscle. It's just a pump. I realize we kind of romanticize it as like this symbol for the more emotional part of our mind, of our psyche, of our soul, even. Um, but that's not what it is. You know, I mean, you could argue like clusters of nerves in other sections of your body um, are almost kind of part of your brain, part of your mind. There's that. We often say guts. I felt it in my gut because again, there's we're not quite like those dinosaurs that have a second brain in our tail, but we're almost sort of like that physiologically with our nervous system. That said, though, the heart, like the heart's beating, like I don't care. Whoopee jack shit. It's a piece of muscle and it's pumping blood. Now, by the time the heart is beating, you probably do have brain activity, I would imagine. Um, that said, though, I don't. I don't. That's not. I could hook a. I could. I mean, it's an over exaggeration, but you could damn near hook a fucking heart up to a car battery and get it to beat a few times after the guy's dead. I mean, that's not life. That's not a mind. It's not a soul. It's just a fucking piece of. It's just this really intricately designed piece of muscle in your chest that's pumping blood through you. It's not. Yeah. It's. I think it's just kind of silly and romantic to say, well, it's got a heartbeat. Well, would be jack shit. I mean, somebody says heartbeat comes first, Bechtloff by about a week. Well, then okay. If you can show me that there is absolutely no brain activity, but the heart is beating, I'm like, well, so fucking what? Now again, I don't, I don't know. I mean, I'm largely agnostic on it. It's just, if I had to draw the line somewhere, that's where I'm going to draw it. As for outlawing abortion and shit like that, I mean, I definitely, late term abortion. Sure. I don't understand why the fuck you'd need that anyways. I mean, with the exception of maybe, I don't know, it's going to come out looking like a transporter accident or something, from Star Trek or something, okay, fine. Or, some sort of life of the mother shit. But yeah, as some manner of birth control, late term abortions, I can't imagine why anyone would fucking need that. I mean, ideally, I'd rather not have the government involved in it at all. And, I'd rather we just be a moral fucking people where this kind of shit doesn't happen that often anyways. Because, I mean, pregnancy is the easiest fucking thing in the world to avoid. Like, there is kind of a level where I sort of look at abortion and I'm like, why do you even need it? I mean, if you don't want to have a baby, just use a fucking condom. You know, just use a fucking condom. Like, this isn't difficult. Just tell them to nut on your tits or something. I mean, this isn't difficult. Why? I don't. That's always kind of been my thing with abortion. Like, why does this even need it? Never mind where it's right, whether it's right or wrong. Like, why were you waiting till this fucking step along the process to maybe think twice about shit? John Steele says there are plenty of full-grown people with zero brain activity. Most of them are Democrats. Well, I'm not exactly opposed to putting them down either. Let's see. Yeah, but it was a heartbeat. The heartbeats were again, that's just romanticizing shit. Oh, it's got a heartbeat. Yeah, so what? The heart isn't you. So he says, however, you can swap out brains according to a cheesy sci-fi movie. I mean, look, like, I don't know about, like, not just brains, but let's say somehow I can just completely transplant not only your brain, but the entirety of your nervous system from one person to another, right? Just completely swapping them out. I mean, obviously that's really fucking far-fetched shit. But at that point, I think you've just, you're you, but in a different body at that point. Meanwhile, if I get heart transplant, same with like a lung transplant. I mean, yeah, it hasn't really affected who I am at the core at all. Somebody says, I was forced to pull the plug on my father, a man who I love dearly. Sorry to hear that. I assure you he had a heartbeat and it was beating fine. His body was even breathing on its own, but brain dead. Simple body functions are not an indication of real life. Yeah. The person can basically be gone and you're just keeping meat warm at that point. Somebody says, but you wouldn't have your soul. No, you are your soul. And if there's any part of your body your soul is traveling along with, it's your brain. You don't have a soul. You are a soul. You have a body. But from a strictly secular materialist standpoint, I guess you could say you don't have a mind, you are a mind. I think there's a pretty big overlap between soul and mind, in my opinion. There are separate things, but they're at times indistinguishable. Somebody says, here's why women should be slut-shamed vehemently. They're the ones making the abortion question important and fracturing society because of it. Yeah, but I don't understand why it's even fucking needed. They sell condoms at the store. You know what I mean? Like, they're not expensive, and they're pretty readily available. Any fucking gas station at any hour of the day is going to have them. Somebody says Las Vegas shooting equal elephant in a room. Yeah, I was going to talk about that a little bit. In fact, I guess I'll talk about that now. Kind of at a low on the other stuff I was talking about. So I don't know a ton about it. I haven't followed it that deeply, but apparently it's some boomer uh, snapped and, he locked himself up in the, you know, 32nd floor, I believe it was, some hotel, and just started picking off people at this country music concert that was going on within, obviously within fucking visual range of this guy. Um, the thing about it is, I mean, obviously you got the left running their mouth about, oh, we need gun control. If this guy wasn't a boomer, I'm sure like social conservatives be running their mouth about how we got to, get rid of the violent video games. Call of Duty made him a killer or something like that. Here's the interesting thing about this kind of thing. Now, obviously, when it's done for like a cause, like say the Muslims or any kind of real terrorist, there's obviously a bigger movement that needs to be, scrutinized at the very least, if not held accountable. But generally speaking, when somebody just snaps and kills a bunch of people, really nobody's fucking responsible but that person. Not the NRA, not, violent R-rated movies, not whatever. None of that shit. But the thing about it is we always want to point the blame. We always want to point to, those kids shot up to school because of Marilyn Manson, or this, this is the NRA, and Hillary Clinton, grandstanding on people's, not even cool bodies yet, about how thankfully he couldn't get a silencer, or he'd have been able to take out more people. Bitch, silencers don't work like they do in a movie, okay? Yeah, they do silence it somewhat, but trust me, guns are still fucking loud with a silencer or a suppressor on them, all right? It's not like the fucking movie where it's just, like, it doesn't work that way, okay? I mean, shit, you could go with the Irish silencer or shoving a potato in the end of it. That'd probably be more effective than most silencers. It'll fuck up your gun after you do it too long. You're gonna have a bitch of a time cleaning your gun, but oh, the NRA did this, or the evil rock music, and the violent video games. This kid played Doom back in 1995, and that's why he killed everybody. Like, no, fuck you. Here's the thing, like, and it's scary. See, we want to have somebody to blame, because more often than not, the shooter's dead. Okay, the cops probably killed him in the process, or he put the gun in his own mouth most of the time with these kind of things. So we feel like we're denied a sense of justice, of retribution. We can't string him up. He's already fucking gone. He's standing in front of his maker, and he's facing an entirely different kind of justice. But we don't have the catharsis of being able to string the motherfucker up. So that's why we feel the need to, like, well, it's the fucking video games and the rock music and the NRA, and because we just feel the need. And obviously there's people in power that want to use it to go after a particular axe to grind. There's people who just don't like the rock music and the violent video games, and they want to use it as an excuse to go after them. And Hillary Clinton obviously people like her obviously want to disarm us all, and they want to use this as an excuse. But the rank and file people, they're not quite that malicious. They just they feel like somebody's got to pay. And it's scary to accept that, no, this guy has escaped earthly justice. It doesn't mean he's escaped otherworldly justice, but he's escaped earthly justice. I mean, we have that's the thing, I mean, like, it's illegal to commit suicide, you know what I mean? But if Joe Schmo does it, what are you going to do about it? You know what I mean? Are you going to fucking arrest his corpse? It's, once a person's dead, there's nothing else we can do to him, You can call the Ghostbusters, trap his ghost. I mean, there's nothing you could do. And we don't like that. We don't like feeling like this person escaped our wrath. He didn't escape someone else's wrath, but we don't like that. And the other thing about it is these sort of mass shootings, these sort of random attacks and all, they remind us, and we don't like to think of this, They remind us that safety is at best a relative term, and at worst an outright illusion. There's a line from Rick and Morty that I really like, and it pertains to this a lot. And I'm not lay intellectual fedora that quotes this like it's the most brilliant show in the world. It's not. It's just a clever, funny cartoon. But there's a line from Rick and Morty where Rick, they described this one person died with all the blood drained, and there were 2 puncture wounds in their neck, and they're like, what could have done this? And Rick's like, probably vampires. And they're like, vampires are real? Who knew? And Rick's like, well, most of humanity for most of history. And she's like, it was Summer was saying like, well, what are we going to do? And he goes, we're going to live our lives until we die, possibly from vampire, more likely from car wreck or heart disease, but possibly from vampire. And that kind of needs to be your attitude about these mass shootings at a certain point. You got to say, because if somebody wants to get up in a high fucking spot and pick off a bunch of people with fucking sniper rifle, there's not a whole hell of a lot you can do to prevent that. There's some basic things you can do, and we probably should, but we basically are already doing those things. I mean, obviously, if somebody wants to fucking rent a 34th story hotel room and he's got a fucking sniper rifle on his back, they might turn him away. They might do a wellness check on it, have the cops do a wellness check on him. But if somebody's really sneaky about it, really wants to do that kind of shit, there's not a whole hell of a lot you can do to stop it, So what's the response to it? Well, a lot of people just can't handle that because it's a reminder of their mortality. But you know what? My response to it is, oh, what are we going to do about this? Well, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to live my life until I die, possibly from sniper rifle, more likely from heart disease or car wreck, but possibly from sniper rifle. And who the fuck knows? Maybe vampire. I don't fucking know. Maybe they've just been sleeping for a long time, and that's why we don't hear about them anymore. But, at one point I'm going to die. That could be, I don't know, that could be like 70 fucking years from now. I don't know, maybe I'll live to be 150. You never know what the hell medicine is going to, it might keep my fucking, maybe I'll have to be a head in a jar like Futurama or something. Live to 250 or something. But one day, head in a jar, no, I'm going to die. And you all are going to die. The little dog sleeping over there is going to die. The little dust mites that might be on your shirt right now, they're going to die. That's the one thing you got in common with every other living thing on this planet is you're going to die. Maybe tonight. Maybe you might have another 100 years. Or you might have another 100 seconds. I might die before this live stream is. You might hear me die live. It'll be a fucking aneurysm popped in my brain, Did you think John Ritter went onto the set of that show one day thinking he was going to die? You don't know when you're going to die. And all of you are going to die. So at a certain point, you need to make your peace with your maker. And accept it. And then live your life. And I've made my peace with my maker. As I often like to say, when the shit hits the fan, I'm not, if I wake up tomorrow and the fucking zombies are running all around the place, it's a zombie outbreak or something, society is in ruin, the dollar is collapsed or whatever, I'm not going to be happy about it. But, at a certain point, I've made my peace with God. Let's dance. So, to everybody that's looking at this, think, oh, what are we going to do? Because you're driving down the road, right? Driving down the road, 2-lane road. Another car is coming the other way. And you know what? In that moment, he might have gone out that day and thinking, I'm going to kill myself. And I'm going to do it by running into the first motherfucking silver car I see or a red car or green car, whatever color your car is, right? And he might fucking run into your ass head first, just swerve quickly into your lane, a pair of you doing fucking 70 down this road. And you're going to probably fucking die from that. And you would have never expected it. And there was nothing you could have done to anticipate it and thus prevent it. And boom, you're fucking dead. You're fucking dead because some other guy snapped. And every ban assault trucks, I guess, as the Muslims show, every fucking vehicle on the road is a deadly weapon in the right hands. Every one of them is a huge, several ton, 2 to at least 1 or 2 ton piece of fucking metal going down the road at 50 miles an hour or something. That's a deadly fucking weapon if somebody wishes it to be. What are you going to do? Well, you know what? You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to live my life until I die. Probably from, heart failure or a car wreck or, whatever. But possibly because some maniac snapped and I happened to be in his field of vision when he did. That's the biggest thing I have to say about this stuff, because I don't know. It doesn't appear like there was any massive political motivation from him. I mean, just some jackass who's, I don't know, maybe he just hated country music. I don't know. It was a country music festival. I mean, I hate it too. So, it was, again, I mean, there's nothing else you can do about it. Make your peace with God and live your life. That's all you can do. And I've made my peace with God. Him and I are cool. We're squared up. I mean, look, there's basic precautions you can and should take as a society. For example, we shouldn't let a bunch of fucking Muslims in. We shouldn't let a bunch of fucking Muslims in this country. Because, yeah, you can never completely prevent it. But, when you let in a bunch of death worshippers, you're probably, upping the odds a bit there, aren't you? But at a certain point, especially in a free country, but in any country, really, in any place, really, there's not a lot you can do about it. Even the president of the United States isn't nearly as safe as we like to imagine. Most people, if there were and I realize this is so terrible to say, and it sounds like I'm inciting violence or something, but if somebody was really bound and determined to kill any president, and they were a halfway decent shot with no criminal record, and they accepted it was a suicide mission, well, what are you going to do? Yeah, you can have deterrence, but the deterrence can only do so much. And when you have some maniac who, wishes to do as much harm as possible and gives not one rosy shit about his own safety or survival, what can you do? And as I said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to live my life until I die. And that's all you can do. Make your peace with God. Make your peace with your maker. And yeah, that means, accepting the blood of Christ as payment for your sins. It doesn't mean kissing the ring of a pedophile in Rome. Make your peace with your maker and live your life. That's all you can do. Somebody says, Bechtloff, death for Christians is just God saying, leave your muddy coat at the door. I'll give you a new one. Yeah. I mean, look, it's my sincere religious conviction that if some maniac kicks in my door right now, and before I have time to react, put the fucking bullet in my head, then I'm immensely better off. I'm better than I've ever been in the entirety of my existence at that point. That's all you can do. You have to face your mortality. You know, no matter when it is, you're gonna die. You know, you might have another century. You might have 10 minutes. I don't know. You don't know. Whatever. I mean, I'm in no hurry. You know, but it'll happen when it happens. And again, it's fine to, by all means, take common sense precautions. But that's the difference between putting on your seatbelt and being afraid to go anywhere in your car. You know, yeah, put your seatbelt on, but, you know, and be careful when you're driving. But if you got to go somewhere, go somewhere. You know? And trust me, you are in way more fucking danger every time you get behind the wheel of a car than you are from some fucking boomer who snapped, you know, with a gun. Like I said, what are we going to do? I'm going to live my life until I die. And I suggest you all do the same. And that's all I have to say about that, because there's nothing particularly interesting about this guy. Near as I can tell, he's just some fucking batshit boomer. I mean, you know, somebody in the comments says ban assault boomers now. And trust me, most of the generation needs on the fucking ice floe. But you know, I'm not gonna, I don't. It doesn't seem like he's left any sort of manifesto. Which is odd. I mean, you know, I'm sure all the conspiracy guys are sitting there calling false flag, and who knows? Maybe. I certainly wouldn't put it past the government. You know, there's certainly elements in our government that would love that. And I sometimes question that orange-haired dude who shot up the Batman theater years ago. Sometimes question whether that's always struck me as a touch suspicious. But you know, it just seems like, you know, he didn't have some fucking manifesto or some shit. He just, at least not that I've seen. Maybe y'all know different than I do. But it just seems like some dickhead that snapped. You know, he's having a bad day and he's going to take it out on a bunch of strangers. You know, I mean, a lot of people have had that urge in them, but they don't do it because they're not a fucking lunatic. Somebody said the shooter had Antifa literature. Well, that makes sense why he targeted a country, you know, concert then. But, you know, I mean, he's some asshole that snapped and now he's in hell. And there's not a ton to say about it. Somebody says, Bechtloff, you hear about the former CBS executive that said they're glad they died because country music fans are Republicans. That doesn't surprise me. I mean, obviously there's huge polarization in the country right now, but I mean, it's the left that I mean, politics is entirely personal with them. Let's see. He was a fucking white male. What more do you need to know? You're a white male. Yeah, but I mean, there's nothing to really say about it. And I mean, all day long, I couldn't get away from the news of it. You know, even like satellite radio, like the 90s and pop 2K stations and shit like that, they're like, oh, tune into the fucking news channels for more on the shooting. What more is there? That's the other thing. Like, when there's this quote unquote breaking news, I always hate how like the live news channels just milk the shit out of it. Like, just say the same 2 minutes worth of information over and over again for 3 fucking hours straight. You know, well, yeah, all day long. I was actually driving a bit today because I was going to meet somebody for lunch out around Harrisburg, but I couldn't stand it. There was some sort of major accident on 283, and the place was just a parking lot. It took me 30 minutes to go like maybe 2 miles. I finally was like, dude, I'm going to turn around at the next exit. I'm sorry, I'll have to catch you next time you're in town. I just this is just I can't deal with this. Huh. So he says, being intellectually honest, if you wanted to shoot up some people, what law would really stop you? Is there ain't shit anyone can do about it? Oh yeah, trust me. If you have snapped and you're going crazy and you want to kill everybody, no matter what precautions are in place, you're probably going to take a few motherfuckers down before they take you down. There's nothing that can really be done about it. I mean, hell, even if I don't have a fucking gun, you take all the guns away, sure. Like I said, I still have access to this, 2-ton fucking vehicle that I can, I could plow into a bunch of motherfuckers going 90. You're going to take all the cars away? I mean, how far is that going to go? You know? I can bash somebody's head in with a rock if I want to. I mean, caveman, human beings managed to kill each other for a very long time before anybody ever discovered or, gunpowder, created gunpowder. We were killing each other before anybody, anybody created the sword. Civilization is only a gentleman's agreement. Yes, that's very true. The whole idea of the rule of law that we value so much. I mean, it's like Tinkerbell. If enough of us don't clap our hands and believe, it dies. Oh, while I remember, sponsors. If you're enjoying the program, Veritas Morte and Ravendale, 2 good sci-fi books for you. Decent sci-fi reads and aren't paused in the egg hole. And also, if you enjoy the show, there's the tip jar down below where you can send me some motherfucking shekels. And tips of any size are greatly appreciated. You're just like, hey, I like this Bechtloff guy, I'm going to send him $1. Well, it's appreciated. That's $1. Well, I got 61 people listening to me. If you all send me $1, it is $61. That's not bad. That's nothing to sneeze at. And certainly if you all sent me $5, I mean, that helps me keep doing what I'm doing. As I've said numerous times on here, whatever the alternative media is you enjoy, it is good to support it. If that's me, I appreciate it. If that's, somebody like Alex Jones, go buy some water filters. If it's somebody like Stefan Molyneux, throw him $1 or $2. If it's, somebody like Jordan Peterson, I think he's got a Patreon. Mr. Medicare, he does great work. Send some ducats his way. Forney does good stuff. Davis Rainey does good stuff. I mean, hell, if you love the buttstuff.jizz guys, send them some shekels. Whoever it is that you feel like gives you the quality content, is informative, entertaining, maybe enlightening, whatever, throw them some shekels. Especially with all this apocalypse shit, and they're trying to just make it so hard to make an honest buck being an entertainer out here. Shekels are greatly appreciated. All right, let's see what we got going on in chat. Give shekels to diversity in comics. Yeah, they do some good stuff. So he says Jim is the man. Yeah, I was very pleased I was able to get him onto the show. I greatly appreciate the work he does. On a lighter note, have you seen the Geico ad with He-Man? I have not, but that sounds awesome. When I was really little, I loved He-Man. And I mean, up till like maybe age like 5, I was all about He-Man. From like 3 to 5, I think it was. After that, like the Ninja Turtles came out, and I was all about the Ninja Turtles. But I still have a soft spot for He-Man to this day. Let's see. Country is now the official genre of the alt-right. Country music sucks. So he says, Bechtloff, if I have a black penis transplant, am I still me or do I become Jamal? No, I think you're still you. I mean, you know, you might have herpes at that point, but you're chlamydia, but you're still you. Let's see. Anything else interesting going on in chat? You know, I really hope I'm able to figure out how to get more games loaded up on this little device. I mean, the construction over it's a bit flimsier than I expected, but it's still a decent little device. And if I could really get like some cool little ROMs again, like I said, I don't think it's strictly speaking a Genesis emulator, so I might be able to get, you know, non-Genesis games on it. It'd be cool. Like I said, it'd be really cool if I could get Super Smash Land on there. If not, I mean, even if it's just Genesis games, I could probably get some really cool Sonic ROM hack games on there or something like that. Yeah, stuff like that. Maybe get like, I mean, there's tons of great Genesis games that, you know, we're never going to end up on this. I mean, like the Jurassic Park Genesis game. And actually, this is going to be one of my VidMe vids coming up. By the way, if you haven't seen my VidMe channel, check it out. It's vidme.com/thebechtloff, something like that. Those are animated, shorter, but actually animated videos. Where it's usually kind of geek topics, but there's all sorts of, it's not strictly speaking geek. It's a bit more apolitical than this, but do check out the VidMe channel. And I know I got a few new viewers that I've interacted with recently. Check out the VidMe stuff. There's 6 videos on there. There's more coming. That stuff I'm really proud of. Anyways, an upcoming VidMe thing that I got to do with the audio for. There's 3 I did the audio for that Luke is working on the animation, you know, of. They'll be coming down the pike. Another one I want to do, though, is basically, I don't know what I'll call it, but kind of the top 10, you know, ways that Genesis did what Nintendo didn't, you know. Genesis does what Nintendo don't. Basically, the top 10 Genesis exclusive games. Now, like, I'm not going to cover stuff from multiple stuff from the same franchise that much. Like, I'll just bring up Sonic as just one slot in it because, you know, I don't want to be like, well, Sonic 3 and Knuckles, and then Sonic 2, and then Sonic 1, and, you know, no. I'll just be like, well, Sonic, you know, and then, like, you know, I don't want Vector Man 1 and 2 are both great games, but I don't want 2 slots for Vector Man kind of thing. But yeah, like the Vector Man games, great stuff. Rocket Knight, great stuff. Genesis exclusives, you know. The Genesis X-Men game is really good. And that's a Genesis exclusive. Jurassic Park on the Genesis is fucking fantastic. It's the best Jurassic Park game, and it's kind of survival horror back before that was really much of a thing. Let's see, what else was Genesis exclusive? Obviously, the Sonic games. Rystar, great game for the Genesis. Let's see, what else did I have on there? I made a list, actually, because I want to have the list in front of me when I do it. The VidMe vids, I mean, the audio is basically unscripted. You know, I might have a I might have an outline, but that's it. But yeah, a lot of great Genesis exclusive games. The Animaniacs game on the Genesis. Now, yeah, that's a case where, like Jurassic Park, where yeah, there were Animaniacs games on the Super Nintendo, but that was back when like licensed games would be completely different on the Super Nintendo versus the Genesis. The Genesis Animaniacs game, I think, is a better one. Interestingly enough, the Game Boy version of Animaniacs is basically a watered down port of the Genesis one, not the Super Nintendo one. That's kind of odd. But yeah, that's going to be one of the next VidMe things. I think I might even have a slot for Columns in it, because Columns is a pretty decent puzzle game that really doesn't get enough credit. Now, I didn't have Columns on the Genesis as a kid. I had it on the Game Gear because it came with the Game Gear. I really like the fact that Tetris came with the Game Boy and Columns came with the Game Gear, because I never would have asked for those games as a kid, but I liked that I had them. It sort of expanded the horizon. Somebody says, Bechtloff, why don't you put a VidMe link in the description? It would be way easier to access. I don't know. I keep forgetting. I might just make it like a permanent part of video descriptions, like the little Gib Shekels link there. Somebody says Shania Twain and Tim McGraw are the only good country singers. Well, I mean, that's only if you're not counting the great Taylor Swift as a country singer. So he says, I don't think Milo Yiannopoulos would be caught dead listening to country, but then again, he's not alt-right. No, the reason he's not alt-right is because he sucks black dick. Not because he sucks dick, mind you. A lot of alt-right motherfuckers like the dick. But no, they just don't like the black dick. See, the alt-right is all about no Negroes in my bathhouse. Whereas, Milo wishes to just be the one token white guy in a black bathhouse. Let's see what we got going on here in the chat. How long have we been going on? Ooh, a little over an hour. Somebody says, transhumanism is my white pill. I'll be a cyborg with infinite copies of my personality. Whatever. Yeah, it's probably not the best thing to be betting on. Let's see. Going through the old chat here. Alt-right equal anal right. Silicon Valley is full of demons disguised as nerds. Oh, man. I wonder if there really is going to be a big push for gun control following this thing, because what gets me suspicious, I don't look at anything big media organizations do as organic anymore, including how they cover the news. I mean, even the fact that all these satellite radio channels, for example, are like, oh yeah, tune into the news channels for more on this so important fucking game or so important fucking news story. Because I mean, I wonder if they're going to be a big push. We'll see. If you're looking to buy an AR, for example, I would do so in the next day or so before the price goes up another $200 at least. If you're looking to sell an AR, now's probably the time. Somebody says the Spider-Man game coming out 2018. Thoughts? I think it looks good. The one thing I really, really like about it is that we're focusing on an adult Spider-Man for once. I'm sick of the need to constantly drag him back to being a teenager. I mean, I started reading when Spider-Man was already married and an actual functional adult, and I liked that. I hate how they keep trying to man baby him up. I mean, hell, it wasn't that interesting having him in high school. That's why Stan Lee hurried up and got him into college. Let's see. Anything going on in chat? No, not really. So he says, my response to any adult male advocating for gun control is, does your wife's boyfriend know you're a faggot? Somebody says, did you like Rogue One? I have not seen Rogue One. I did not go to see Rogue One because, the thing about Star Wars is I had, at the point Rogue One had came out, I had already gone to the theater to see 4 shitty movies in a row. Why do they get a 5th chance with me? The answer is they don't. I don't understand how everybody just keeps lining up for the latest installment in this franchise when it just keeps shitting directly in your mouth. I don't understand fucking Star Wars fans. Like, how bad for how long does it have to be till you give up on it? And I've heard Rogue One's not bad, but too late. It's too late. It's too late to finally do a good movie. Let's see. Instruction manual for this little device I got here. Let's see. What was the thing here? It said, how to play games on my SD card. Turn on the game player. Insert the SD in the SD slot. Turn on the game player. Select the SD card on the last page of the menu. Then select your game. This is interesting. How do I add games to the SD card? Insert SD cards into PC. Create a folder with the name of game or game. Game all capitals or game just capital G. If the SD card doesn't have a game folder already. Place games in the game folder. Note, the file format which is supported by the unit is .bin. I wonder how many, if that'll end up being a pain in the ass to convert to or something. I don't know. I don't know nothing about all these here computers. It's all fucking magic. There's a tiny wizard that lives in my laptop, makes it go. So he says Star Trek Discovery. Yeah, that looks like fucking ass. I mean, look, I grew up with watching TNG as a kid and reruns of original series, and I watched Voyager and DS9 when they were out too. And I mean, I love Star Trek as a kid. And even as an adult, like I recognize the flaws. One of the reviewers I really love is SF Debris. And the reason I love him is so many people either love Star Trek or they hate it. They either think it's just absolute shit or they think it's the greatest thing in the world. Whereas SF Debris is a guy who likes Star Trek and still sees through its bullshit. So yeah, to me, Star Trek died with the 09 reboot. I mean, don't get me wrong, it was damn near dead with fucking Enterprise. But yeah, it died with the 09 reboot. And now look at the festering corpse of it now. Look at it, Star Trek Discovery. So he says, hey, Bechtloff, what do you think of the Venom movie coming out with Tom Hardy as Eddie Brock / Venom? You think Steve Buscemi should be Carnage? That's not a bad casting choice. The guy who played Rorschach wouldn't be a bad Cletus Cassidy either. Hell, Jim Carrey wouldn't be a bad Cletus Cassidy. But here's the thing with the Carnage movie now, or the Venom movie, I mean. It's not tied in with the current Spider-Man or any other. It's not trying to be like, like how the Teen Titans in the Teen Titans cartoon exist in a world where there's no Justice League. It's not removing Venom completely from Spider-Man. There's still a Spider-Man in this world that exists, which I really liked. I was afraid they were going to do some dumb shit like just, it's just a standalone character kind of thing. I have to say the basic teaser trailers of it looked kind of good. They certainly look better than the Amazing Spider-Man shit. Um, I think it might turn out to be really good, and I'm kind of surprised to say that. But and I'd love to see a faithful adaptation. I'd love to see a faithful representation of Carnage on the big screen. Um, let's see. You hear Mads Mikkelsen wants to be Doctor Doom. I don't really know who that is. I couldn't tell you. Oh, you know what was interesting? Last night I watched, or no, I watched it on demand today because I heard it was good. Family Guy actually had a pretty damn good episode last night. Now, I think Family Guy is really hit or miss these days. I think it used to be hilarious, but the past several years it's been hit or miss. That said, though, last night was fucking brilliant. It was like Peter Griffin decides he's tired. It sort of broke the fourth wall, but it was like Peter Griffin decides he's tired of the fact that Family Guy never won an Emmy. So he decides he's going to make sure the show won an Emmy, and it starts spoofing all these shows out there that, you know, win constant Emmys and everyone sucks their dick. I mean, they were spoofing shows like Breaking Bad and Game of Thrones and Transparent and Modern Family, Big Bang Theory. And it was pretty damn funny. If you have like an on-demand, maybe if you got cable, I suggest checking it out. I don't know. You might be able to go on Fox or something and watch it. But it was called, the episode's titled like Emmy Award-winning episode. And it was funny as hell. So he says, damn, can you imagine a current Kid Spidey versus Tom Hardy Venom? That'd be funny as shit. So he says, all right, gentlemen, gentlemen and non-binary who identify as goldfish, have a lovely night. And I, of course, identify as a Bulbasaur. Everyone knows that. You know, it's about time Bulbasaur kins like me got the respect we deserve. I think I'm probably going to wrap this up. I've hit all the big bases here, you know, shitting on Catholics, talking about the shooting, talking about this little game device I got, stuff like that. All the important stuff. I think I hit on it. So yeah, if you enjoy the show, check out the 2 books below, Ravendale and Veritas Morte. One Veritas Morte is kind of a space opera type story. Ravendale is set in a futuristic city where everyone can fly and no one knows why because no one cares. One person sets out to figure out the reason why. Veritas Morte, you have a young son of an emperor in a space opera story who has to figure out an assassination plot, that kind of thing. So yeah, good stuff. Check out both. And if you check out the sponsors, that helps me keep doing what I'm doing. And again, I haven't really decided what's going to be the big show of the week. So we'll see on that when I'm moving that to. Obviously, the Saturday show is probably not going to be continuing because I'm going to end up working weekends with this upcoming job. I will know more Thursday. So Thursday night, I would suggest tuning in, if nothing else, because I will probably be laying out at least a tentative schedule at that point. All right. Well, that's all I got for tonight, folks. I want to thank you all for listening. Bechtloff out.